Okay, so this is the second half of our first seminar, and we will begin with words from Susan. Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your introductions. I'm so inspired by all of you, and between all of us, there are hundreds of hours of experience here, and we're going to be tapping into that as a group. And it's such a diverse, but also interrelated kind of range of experiences. So I'm very inspired. Um, I think a lot of you know. Um, already, but I'll just say uh, I've been an educator, I've been a musician. Um, I was doing a lot of performing in the early 80s when my kids were little. I discovered Tai Chi. As soon as I did, it changed how I was performing. It changed how I was standing and moving. Well, I wasn't moving before that when I was singing. I was afraid to move. Almost. It's like you've got to stand still so that you can control everything. And Tai Chi changed a lot of that. I also found the Lesak method around that time, which I haven't gone deeply into because I haven't had a chance, but I'm a big fan of that. And it all was related in terms of the philosophy, Tai Chi and the Lesak method. And then 17 or whatever number of years ago, trying to solve a Tai Chi question, I ended up stumbling upon biotensegrity. Oh, and in the meantime, I got a master's in kinesthetic learning because it was studying the multiple intelligences of Howard Gardner that a principal at a school I was working at introduced the faculty to, and we dove into it as faculty for a year. And so then when I went to get my master's, I knew I needed to do kinesthetic learning, which at the time wasn't really a much used phrase the way it is today. So then when I stumbled upon tensegrity and then biotensegrity, to me, it made a lot of things come together. It made sense of what I had been studying in Tai Chi for decades at that point. Um, and everything else that I've ever done. And I was just down that rabbit hole. And at that time, I was doing Tai Chi. I was teaching Qigong as well as part of a regional hospital program in Northern Virginia. I was doing Shingi. I was doing Bagua, which I had done off and on for over a decade. I was doing Tai Chi Sword. I was starting to learn the Wu form, which was not my home form. It was a very different Taiji form, and I was getting into that. And I dropped just about everything so that I could go full in to biotensegrity because I just recognized that as my path. Um, so I, as Jason said, I mean, and Susan Koenig, I'm going to try to say your name correctly every time. You know, I do feel that oft cited as a Yeats quote, but apparently it's not. Education should be more about the lighting of a fire than the filling of a bucket. The truth is, we all self-educate and we do it according to where that fire and how that fire has been lit. And so, student self-directed education is what I'm a huge believer in, even at the kindergarten level. And I've also taught kindergarten and nursery, and I loved doing it all. Um, I mean, I did that as a music teacher and as a computer teacher. You all are or poised on becoming thought leaders in a very still new field. And that's what you're doing here, in part, to my mind. How do you become a thought leader in your field? And you already are thought leaders, most of you, if not all of you, in the fields you've been working in. So now you're going to be folding in your own way biotensegrity into that. And to my mind, becoming a thought leader in your field is not something you claim I'm an expert in. It's something that is bestowed upon you by your community, by the community of people that are interested in what you're interested in. And some of this comes from my perspective on this comes from Tai Chi as much as from music. Somebody can say they're a great musician, but it's not really a personal decision to make. It's what the community around you, how your community evaluates you. And I appreciate how this discussion today has come around a few times to environment because the people that we're with are part of our environment. So here we are mindfully becoming an environment for each other, which to me is very exciting. Everybody working in this area of biotensegrity, and this comes down to me from Steve and his way of doing the sort of community culture. We want you to think for yourself. Whatever you find or do with or do about biotensegrity, nobody's saying, we're not, there's no point in being regimental about this, right? Everybody's going to be doing it in their own way and finding their own way. But we check with each other to see if things are right and making sense, hanging together. Because again, this is very new. So it's really important. And you guys already have a lot of experience with this, that the critical thinking skills are honed, you know, that you're thinking for yourself, that you're not taking anything on someone else's word. I don't think anybody here um, or in the greater biotensegrity community wants that because it's really not useful. So part of what some of you are already thinking about is how can you be of the greatest value to others, your community, and your time put into figuring out your burning question, which is something I learned in graduate school when I was just starting. And somebody said, "What's your burning question?" And I thought, well, I don't know if I have a burning question. And he said, "What's your burning question? You're not going to get through this process if you don't know your burning question." And that was an eye opener for me because I think when I started graduate school, I was expecting the filling a bucket kind of thing to be happening rather than find your burning question and then that directs you in knowing what you want to put in your bucket if you're going to be filling your bucket, to extend that metaphor. Anyway, um, that means that we need to be tapping into our internal confidence. What I've done with the littlest kids when I've tutored over the years is making sure they were aware of the feeling of being sure and what that is. And you all are body-centered people, so you know what I'm talking about already. But I just remember I had a student who was so interested in making her teachers happy. And this was, I've done a lot with math. And if I said, what is 4 plus 3, she would say 8, and then she might say, no, try again. 27, try again. 2, she was just hoping she'd stumble onto it so that I would be happy. And she had no idea what to actually do with the question. So I said to her something along the lines of, okay, Bernie. And she said, why are you calling me Bernie? I said, well, that's your name. You're Bernie, right? And she said, what are you talking? No, you know my name. And I said, no, I'm pretty sure I know your parents told me your name was, but I'm pretty sure your name's Bernie. I'm pretty sure if you think about it. And we went back and forth, and I said, so you're sure you're not Bernie? And you're sure of your name? And she said, yes. And I said, that is how sure you need to feel about the number 1, about the number 2, about the number 3. Until you're there, you're not going to be able to add things up. You've got to know where you're sure, and then you'll be able to get to the answers. So, this feeling of being sure is a very important thread for me through education, generally speaking. It means we have to be willing to look stupid. It means we have to be willing to be the kid who points out the emperor's not wearing any clothes. Um, we need to be willing to look unsophisticated. Um, in the Q&A we did on Saturday,
Mhm.
um, we had some great questions. One came from Susan Koenig, and when she was talking about, well, we'll get to that in a minute, but the some people were afraid to ask the questions. I know one person was afraid a little bit to say, okay, this is going to sound stupid, but what is auxeticity exactly? And it's like, okay, we all think we all know everything about everything, but then would we all say the same thing? Would we all answer the question the same way if we were asked? So the willingness to kind of put ourselves out on the line there is an important part of what we're doing as well. And I'll just say that in terms of the burning question concept, you're the only one who can discover it for yourself. It's inside of you. And then when you're evaluating what other people are presenting, you can take a look. Can you find the center of what's coming from them? And is this something that makes sense to you? In songwriting, which I did for many years, I I discovered that for me at least, every song. Oh, and by the way, I think that was a Jan and Dean reference and not a Beach Boys reference, Jason. But I'm sure you'll check on that later. Um, but every song to me had a seed center. And if I could really connect with that, then every note, every word, every inference, whatever it was that became part of the song, had to come out of and return to relink back down into that seed center. And here we are studying biotensegrity and sometimes getting embryological about it so that we can find our way down the road. Your burning question will have a seed center, I think. It's certainly worth looking for it. So now we've got an hour and 15 minutes of stuff out here on the table. And plus that, I had asked people to look at the 7 questions or 7 things even experts get wrong about biotensegrity, but you don't have to. So what I want to do from now until we get to the end of the hour is just be willing to do an open exchange, which I think will go more quickly if you do the raise hands thing. But there's a lot of stuff on the table here. So, what are your thoughts? Because this course is more about you than it is about me by far. And if you don't know how to raise hands, is there anybody who doesn't know how to do that? Okay. Chris, does anybody have their hand up? I'm not looking.
Oh, yes, Susan Koenig. Go ahead, Susan. You're muted though.
I'm trying to remember. I saw it actually just within the last couple of days. But what I remember is I think the first one was about models. I really like the way you started that with what is a what you hold up something. What is this? I can't remember. Let's say it was it wasn't a model of a pelvis. I don't remember what it was, but it was like, okay, what is this? People would say, oh, it's a pelvis. No, it's a model of a pelvis. And I loved that start because I think it set the foundation for the clarity of thinking that you were after. So, and I thought, oh, I'm going to use that. So I love that start.
Great. Mary, you're unmuted. Is that because you're wanting ready to say something?
Oh, no. I'm just.
So I think it's important that you each got to hear everybody else's story and where they were coming from. I look forward to the one-on-one time so that we can focus on your particular things. I know some of you have already started to go and sign up for those times. We've asked for you to put something written um, on the Sutra site in the introduction section, and I think it would still be helpful to do that, even though we've done this here today, so that people can have a very quick reference back if you have the time to do that. Well, then I'm going to ask the 7 things you thought even experts get wrong about biotensegrity. You may have not had a chance to watch it, or you may have. How do we feel about that? Yes, no, right, wrong, any questions? And then, okay, go ahead, Bob.
Well, I'll be the first to apologize to the group because I mean I remember seeing that several months ago, but was been busy prepping for the meeting, so I didn't do my homework. So, um, is
Dog
there
ate your homework.
yeah is there a way that you could just list the quick 7 just very quickly and we can run through?
Um,
Thoughts?
yeah, I mean, I would end up going to the video and scanning through it. So maybe Chris, you could put that list together. Do you mind taking a minute to do that?
I mean,
You know,
I'll certainly go back and watch and go, but in terms of,
Bob,
just a little quick.
I have
oh,
it
Jason's got it
transcribed.
ready. Let me just say, Bob, I'm so grateful that you're willing to stand up and say I didn't do it. So so thank you for that. Um, and then my other kind of related question is what should the next 7 be? And Nuno, I want you to talk about the email that you sent earlier today to me and Chris that you forwarded. Um, because to me it has to do with as we become thought leaders in the community, what are our responsibilities? What are our, what do we do when we run into certain things? But we'll do that in a minute. But I didn't want to have you be unprepared, for that because I think it's important. Go ahead, Jason. You've got the 7?
I just took a screenshot of it and posted it in the chat.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to bother to look because I feel like I probably do agree on all of them. But
Those are the 7 things people get wrong. At the end,
and I want you to know I'm not looking at the chat because I can't really do this and look at the chat. So I'm only anything you put in the chat. Chris is going to be tracking, but I probably
Yeah, I'm tracking it, Susan. Thank you, Jason. And what I'm going to do now is just read out the titles from those 7 things, because
okay.
that way, if people are referring back to the video, it'll be right there in this part of the discussion.
Thanks,
So
Chris.
these are the 7 things people, even experts, get wrong. Number 1, you don't really need a tensegrity. Number 2, a tensegrity with stretchy cables will work. Number 3, the struts are the bones and the cables are and then in brackets, muscles, tendons, ligaments, fascia. Number 4, it's all about tension. Number 5, it's all about fascia. And number 6, it's all about human biomechanics. So those are I
Wait, what
didn't
about
get
number
number
7?
7. Sorry, it was hidden there. Number 7, you can fix or improve your biotensegrity. This one might lead right into the email that Nuno sent us. I'm not sure if you're prepared to talk about that or not, If you are, go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, the email that I sent it's about a talk that is going to happen on the 19th of this month. That was promoted by Dean. I don't remember the name, but I can share with you because it's a free class that's going to happen. It's a group that work with animals and biotensegrity in animals mainly, and they've invited Carol Davis to moderate this 1 hour discussion on concepts related to biotensegrity, but parallelly, related on the side of so Paul
Well, but
Thornley.
that's not, wait a minute. I think you should read if or maybe Chris has it, but it's not that they're just doing concepts related to biotensegrity, right?
No, they're going to try to elucidate people on different meanings and different wording used in the field. I suppose that's going to be just a public screaming at each other and misbehavior of people during an hour. And will try to hold space as best as she can because yeah, well, I can tell you that when I started to see the biotensegrity parties, and I did not knew any of you. There was I saw the opinions of many good opinions on and talks and on the subject by many of you and others. And then when I came to EB in body biotensegrity, I realized that many of them have gone. And I was like, where is all those people? And I tried to search and I found that, come on, there fields in this one knowledge subject? And I realized there are fields of interest. People are trying to pull egotically the rope for themselves and say, this is what is the truth. This is what is the truth. And uh, I got lost. And I know that many people are lost in the field because, and I know this happens in all fields. I know that as Mary was talking about rolfing and the confusion about what's rolfing, what's not rolfing. Blah, blah, blah. I know there's the same about Pilates. There's the same about kettlebell, which is like it seems like a recent thing, but there is a one kettlebell and the other kettlebell and this school and that school. The hand is like that. The hand is like people are not understanding that they are looking at the same thing, which is the human body and life. And so that discussion about that email, they will discuss about um, fascia, the concept of fascia integrity, tensegrity, and fascia biotensegrity, the differences apparently on these terms, and they will elucidate, Paul Thornley will elucidate people on those subjects, moderated by Carol Davis.
Thanks, Nuno. And Chris did put it in the chat, the agenda for that meeting. So, I mean, what was to me positive about this, right, is that, you know, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I think I was able to be aware of every conversation on the planet that had anything to do with biotensegrity. That is way not the case anymore. Okay, biotensegrity is becoming popular. It's starting to become a buzzword. I think everybody here is on the archive email list. And, well, we wrote something in the last year about this bibliometric survey um, on tensegrity, and the two areas of tensegrity that were experiencing a publishing explosion were tensegrity robotics and biotensegrity. So get ready, my friends. You may feel like you're still new to this. We're all still new to this because this is less than, this is 50 years old at most. So thanks, Nuno.
So,
Welcome.
Susan, that leads right into this question of why did you decide to develop that particular presentation in the first place?
Well,
So, so really clearly for people so that we
yeah,
can.
yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that are interested in biotensegrity, and their enthusiasm gets ahead of their understanding. And so um, there are a lot of people that say, oh, okay, the struts are the bones, the strings are the tendons, muscles, ligaments, fascia. I got it. And then, and I say to that, well, you did drive by the house and you saw the house, but come inside, look around, find out what's really here, because there's so much more. And that's not wrong. It's just very limited. It's kind of a reductionist kind of first step, which I think is a natural first step. But that kind of insight, um, in the Rolfing community, it's very clear that that insight was already kind of being examined in 1975. Um, you know, Now it's 50 years down the road. Let's get a little more sophisticated with our understanding. So I developed it because there are certain questions that I had to answer over and over again. I remember somebody wanted some time with me, which I've almost always in the past over the years just given people my time whenever I could. And, I'm talking to somebody and I'm saying, okay, well, is your model nearby? Let me show you something. And they don't have a model. They didn't feel they needed one. They've seen people with their models, that kind of thing. And anybody who was in the event on Saturday or if you look at the recording, you will see Jan Trawartha was right there with her model, right? But it was also clear to me in the conversation that she hadn't physically done the exchange physically, her body in with the model, in order to get a visceral understanding of what auxeticity was. And it's not that, so it's about me wanting to help people go as far as they want to and can down the road with this, and to help people get past the inevitable bumps along the way that sometimes, like over and over again, I'm answering the same questions, the same questions, the same questions. And I thought, well, I'll do this, and that takes some of them off the table. And then a question for you to be thinking about is, what would the next 7 be? So
So
does
what
that
would the
help?
next 7 be? If anybody wants to unmute now and start adding to that list, please do so. And if you want time to think about it, remember that in the discussion in this seminar, there's going to be discussion boxes where you can also write that down. But does anything leap to mind for anyone? Go ahead, Susan. You're
Susan, you're
muted.
On the first one you have on the what was posted, you don't really need a tensegrity. That was in relationship to you don't need a tensegrity as a model. I'm trying to remember the context that came
yes.
out of.
I think a lot of you know that Graham Scar did this big thing in Italy last September. Well, a year ago, September, I guess. Anyway, and there were people that came from all over the world who work in tensegrity, and the the faculty in the group for the week involved Graham and 5 or 6 other people. Um, and people came from all over the world who were studying tensegrity for this intensive week. And Graham, usually when he does things, he brings tons of material so that everybody can walk away with a model, a physical 6 strut tensegrity that they've built. But he didn't do that this time because everybody's already working in tensegrity. So, but he did bring a few different models with him to show people. And there were a number of people who are professionally working in the field of tensegrity who had never held a tensegrity model. And they're working in the field and they've never touched one. And for me, that initial physical encounter was such a watershed moment. I have yet to find somebody who has a model, has done some work with it, built a model, and then said that was not a valuable experience. So, Chris, I don't know who's next.
Oh, okay. Nuno, please. You are
Um,
muted.
am I now? To add to the list of the 7, I think one thing that we've been hearing lately from Steve is it's not about a physical structure. It's about the energetic um, interplay within the physical structure. And we lose ourselves in the struts and strings, in the bones and muscles, in the fascia and the parenchyma and the no, it's about the interactions. It's about the you you need to build the model with your hands to feel not the structure itself, but the tensions and the compressions that emerge from
The
interaction.
Kenneth Nelson saying it's about forces made visible.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Okay. Okay, Jason. I think he's in the middle of writing something down. Jason, do you want to come up next? Do you want me to pass it on to Bob and then call you back later?
No, let Bob go. But yeah, if it comes that there's time, I'll ask my question.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, thanks for the reminders. Multiple thoughts. One is I, so many people when they get involved in or want to be involved or want to be in the know, they start using the terminology with not understanding it. I mean, and so I think that's part of you're starting to see things. I mean, I know my wife comes home many times after taking an exercise class, and this is what the instructor said. It's like, well, wait a minute, that's not close to being right, or everybody's talking about fascia, but don't really understand what it is, don't understand the cellular physiology, don't understand the piece. And I think biotensegrity is that way too, and people are just starting to use the terms. I guess of the 7 list, one would be, one of my favorites is always, how do I fix my biotensegrity? Because that's the mistake, people, always make. It's like, okay, wait a minute, it's a concept, it's a philosophy, it's not, it's not a structure. So getting that understood, I think, is a big leap forward. To add to the list, one I might say, because just fitting my interest, is it's all about structure. Because I know the point that you've always made, it's about structure and function, and the functional side of it is something to me that's not really discussed, enough, and people don't understand, that they both go together, that structure affects function and function affects structure. And it's really the interaction between the two where you really see looking at things from a, systems biology, perspective. So that's kind of, I guess, one immediately that comes to mind, but certainly I'll have to give that a whole lot more thought.
Susan, do you want to respond, or should I move on?
I think that's good. Let's keep
Okay.
going.
Okay, I will just let everybody know and remind everyone that in the Trailblazers Biotensegrity Book Club, there is this 6-part series of lectures that Graham gave in Italy, and it is titled something like Biotensegrity Structure and Function, or Integrating Structure and Function, Dynamics and Stability. So if you're interested in following up on what Bob just said, it's a great place to start. Also, the super stability paper is really good for that.
Hey, Chris, can I jump in here a quick second? Are all 6 videos up there? Because I know that there's
Yes,
5
they
of them.
are. They are. You just have to scroll down to the bottom to see the 6th one.
Great.
It's actually in the space. I haven't put it up at the top of the book club yet. I wanted to give Graham a break before he gets in the hot seat again. Okay, so Bruna, you're next.
Probably the biotensegrity is not a thing, is not a method, is something that it needs to be, because not only the name Biotensegrity Pilates, Biotensegrity Yoga, and all this mix, but the idea of if you do something with this lens, your work is biotensegrity. And there was one conversation that I have the opportunity to have with Susan, and for me was very amazing when she explained to me, I think this is 3 years ago, how we can use the terms to relate our work. So if it is inspired of biotensegrity, if we use a concept to create an idea or a possibility with movement or touch, but I think it is something very important to keep the lights always up.
Right, right.
Go ahead,
It
Susan.
is what you're doing or what you're finding or what this person's doing biotensegrity informed? Is it biotensegrity inspired? That kind of framework I think has for me been very helpful
And Susan, you have a video on that I'll post up in this space, in the seminar one space, okay?
on applied biotensegrity. Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay, go ahead, Nuno.
Um, I've been struggling with other people within that are using the lens of biotensegrity to apply in the work. Um, and what I see is that most people, or some people, try to use the emergent properties as ways to say that we are doing biotensegrity. I'm sorry, let me explain better. Um, an emergent property for me is something that like the energy interaction. It's something that emerges. I don't I don't need to do a spiral. The spiral needs to happen. I need to create the environment conditions for the spiral to happen in a similar in what looks to be a linear movement. So to use the emergent properties by themselves to act out an emergent property, am I respecting the emergence of the property, or am I doing something else that is not the emergent property? It's an act out of a, a spiral or an auxetic thing, or you see, for me, the
Are you,
emergent,
are you
it's a
talking
word.
about, yeah, let me ask, are you talking about the importance of being able to distinguish, let's say in the case of spirals, right? Whether this is a recognition of spirals as an emergent um, phenomenon structurally, according to what we study, versus there are spirals in the system. I know that intellectually, and now I'm going to take that in and explore it. I mean, I'm trying to, or limiting the spiral. Say, here's spirals in your body. You know, there's one. Okay, now here's another one. Here's another one. That we are able to within ourselves kind of know when we're working with metaphor or when we're working with a metaphor that's inspired by something we've discovered in the structure. Maybe we've built a tetrahelix and we've understood how straight force lines and exchanges can emerge into self-assemble into multi-helical structures, that kind of thing.
Yes, let me just give you a practical example with a icosahedron.
Great.
For me to see the spiral action happening, I don't twist the struts or the strings. I push it straight down. And when I push it straight down, I see the emergence of the spiraling. So if I'm trying to see where the spiraling happens in my body when I do this kind of thing, I don't start to go all around, because this is not the emergence
So
of
you
that.
do instead you do an internal listening to the system and
Yes,
see how that helical aspect to our structure function emerges.
yes, like Brune is saying, the CKCs, it's the same thing, or the offsetting behavior, any emergent property. And biotensegrity has emergent properties. It has no inherent, well, they are inherent, but they are all emergent from the interaction, because it's an interaction that we are talking about. It's not something stuck in time. It's an ever evolving thing.
It's a
So
dynamic system.
yes.
Here's another thing people get wrong about tensegrity is they'll see something like the needle tower and they'll say it's a static structure. And they don't recognize that it's a dynamic structure. It may not be moving, but it's a loaded dynamic structure. We may have time for one more after Bob, but Bob may be the last one. Let's see how the time goes.
Just to jump in and maybe to just continue the conversation, just comments that Nuno was making and Bruno about the post-kinetic change in spirals, just from a manual therapy perspective. It's like, what I see in people who have, dysfunction present is that, let's say one of the bars or two of the bars of the 4-bar kinematic chain is not moving appropriately, so the whole system. And so when you go in from a manual therapy perspective, and instead what I go in and do outpatient, I'll go in and try to change the tension compression, see which way the body responds better, and then add a spiral, and then all of a sudden you can feel the system, react. And so it's like you can see that the normal processes start to emerge when you give it the opportunity, to do that. So we're trying, I feel like our, my role is more of a facilitator as opposed to I need to fix this. It's giving the body the opportunity to find that right property. But about the emergent properties, one thing that I've been thinking about and has come up from my students is what happens when someone, let's say, has a bad reaction to a treatment, or they don't feel as well, or things got a little worse. Then the question, in my mind is like the question they ask is always like, well, what did I do wrong? Well, there may be a bunch of things that you did wrong. You should have treated them differently. You should have, seen this, or was it the fact is like you did everything right? It's just that what emerged after as a result of the treatment just didn't turn out as well as you hoped. As Neil Peace wrote in his book on complexity, I mean, sometimes, the emergence of things leads to the dinosaurs becoming extinct. I mean, not everything is the emergence is not always proper. So it's always like, you should always, I think about what you did and what could you have done differently. But, maybe, you did everything okay. Just the result wasn't a good one. But that's kind of something that I've been thinking about lately.
That's great. And yeah, we're working in a field of science, right? We're working in biology. So you may not think of yourself as a biologist, but you are a biologist if you're doing this, even if you're an outsider. Anyway, all right, we'll have to go very quickly through these last two questions or comments. Sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
I've raised this question before on the 7 things. The final one, you can't fix your biotensegrity. And I understand that conceptually, and especially, what Nuno referenced, that we're not truly talking about the physical structure, but it's the forces and the energetics. But all the interventions, whether they're movement or, exercise or therapeutic or like proprioceptive, meditative, energetic, whatever, we are changing. That's the whole point of these practices or these therapies. We're changing our structure and therefore function and it also has, uh, you know, a, change then in your sense of self or everything. So you can't change your biotensegrity, but the point is to have an effect. So how do you reconcile those two, not polarities, but different, the biotensegral properties or law of biotensegrity or is there, but things are changing. Your bone density might change, your muscle tension might change, your fascia collagen might change. So you can't fix your biotensegrity, but you can change your body. So can you address that? Because I think that's where, people can get stuck, maybe.
Yeah, it's a huge sticking point. You're right. And we're going to remember that our language leads us down certain paths. Our frameworks that we are coming from lead us to certain things. We don't have great language for this yet, but we're getting there. And so one of the things, Jason and Chris is going to put that link or whatever, is that distinction that I know you're already familiar with between biotensegrity and applied biotensegrity. Taking the concepts and then applying them in the work to facilitate, better outcomes in terms of how people move, feel, whatever. That's applied biotensegrity to my mind, and not and that's separate from tensegrity, and separate from biotensegrity. And Graham talks about some of these distinctions in his lecture as well. So your bodies are always, Mariana Barreto talks about this so beautifully, because people see the CP kids and they think, they see them as broken, sort of, right? Rather than, here's a kid with whatever developmental problems are there who is doing their very best in terms of the affordances, to use the ecological psychology term, that their biological systemic situation it has presented them with. It could be a longer discussion, but we're really short on time. So I'm going to go over to Susan Koenig.
I think I was going to make the distinction. I mean, it's in the language. If I started using this language of biotensegrity with a client and they came back to me the next week at an appointment and they said, "Oh, I've improved my biotensegrity," I would go, "That's great. What did you do?" I wouldn't go, no, it's applied biotensegrity. I wouldn't do that. I mean, it is in the language. I'd be more interested in what did you do and how did you feel that helped you. But so I kind of think it's funny. I mean, I wouldn't. I do not balk at the language I try not to balk at the language my clients use, but try to go on from there in a positive way, as you do all the time in models, Susan, when you're modeling how you're responding to people. So that was just my point. If a client says, "I've improved my biotensegrity," great. And then we go on.
Yeah. And that's the difference between you working with a client new to the concept and is trying to understand what's going on, and somebody who is, making a concerted effort to become better informed about, or as well informed as they can be about biotensegrity, making that, and then is taking it upon themselves to go into their community and teach about biotensegrity. And I know that you wouldn't go into a Hannah Somatics group and say, "Hi, we're going to show you today how Hannah Somatics helps you fix your biotensegrity." So and you're right. And Mary, said something about this that relates to it. Either it was at a recent tea party or I don't remember, but it was the same kind of thing. It's like I'm not afraid to teach and say this is how I use the word tension. This is how I what I mean when I say compression, I'm not afraid to teach a client. On the other hand, right? There are times um when as a teacher, when you're in that teaching position, the best thing to do is to say, "Great, tell me more about, this part of it," and not try to fix every single piece of what's coming out of somebody's mouth. Because, you know, and so it's like you have to kind of choose your territory, your battles, your goals, whatever
Okay,
it is, depending.
great. Sorry, Susan.
No,
I'm
no, that's
gonna
good.
jump in here. We've got like 2 minutes left, and I want to be prompt on these calls for our start and our finish. And I know you have a question to leave us with.
I do, I do. Um, and so let me also say, Jason put something, is there after party for people with more time? I don't think there will be. I don't know. That's whether Chris wants to host anything afterwards is up to her, but I know I have appointments that I and other things I have to attend to. So I am going to be planning these times in such a way that we end fairly promptly, but everything's recorded and you can always get together on your own and have a Zoom session. Any of you, please do. So the parting shot, I'm borrowing this from Susan Koenig, who asked you about pre-stress on Saturday. So you're going to be in a position where people are going to be asking you about biotensegrity. If somebody said to you, what is pre-stress and what does it have to do with what's going on here? How would you answer them? And I'm not asking for your answers right now. I'm asking you to investigate within yourself what that concept means to you. It's going to be coming up because it's part of the literature. How do you address that subject in a way that makes sense to you and might make sense to the other person? And I think I'll leave it there. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, perfect.
Everybody. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Susan, and thank you everyone for being here. Lots to leave us thinking about. I am going to try and get the recording up before the end of the day. And as we've been through this call, I think what I'll do is divide it into chunks. In particular, that last parting question, because for example, Colby needed to hop off the call. I suspect that Bruna's on her way to pick up her kids. Um, and it's something that we really all want to sit with. So thank you again, everybody. Remember, we've got our general discussion space for general discussion. Comments on seminar one should go inside the seminar one comments place. And don't hesitate to reach out to me. I can be reached either by email or through the messaging Sutra app. And there's instructions for how to do that in the course guide that I showed you at the beginning of the webinar. Okay, so thanks all.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks. See you in a couple of weeks. I look forward to it.